how much of your life right now do you feel is dictated by the need to earn money?
90%.
Do you feel that that's where you want to be?
Absolutely not.
Welcome back to the Modern Craftsman podcast. Today, Nick and myself are going to discuss money, work-life balance, the cost of living in today's world. So to preface this, a couple of weeks ago, Nick had texted me and he said, "What's one thing you wish you could fix or overcome in life right now?" And my answer wasn't necessarily about wanting more money for myself, but just how expensive life has become and how that affects the balance of life. And it seems as though people are working harder than ever just to keep up. And while I don't believe that money buys happiness, it certainly can solve problems. Not all problems, but some problems. And that's the basis of what we want to dig into today. So when Nick had asked me that question, again, it wasn't as though I was like, hey, I wish I had $2 million right now. I think that it was just more so an affordability of life, the pace of life, and what it takes to survive right now, to me, seems as though it's creating an imbalance with home life, personal life, kids, everything, buying a house for younger kids, what type of job you need, getting out of student debt. It just seems as though it's creating an imbalance in life. But then having a longer, deeper conversation with Nick, which he had alluded that his answer was along the same lines, I'm finding out that he shortchanged me some, and he had a bit more to dig into, and that saying money was a bit of a cop-out for him.
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, I think so much can be related back to, obviously, the cost, right? Like, or just the cost of living, or if I had money, I would resolve this. But, I mean, everyone talks about it. Everyone says like, oh, if I could just get to this point. And you know what? Before I go down this rabbit hole,
this podcast is brought to you by Andersen. We all know how important reputation is in this industry, so it's easy to see why more and more pros are turning to Andersen for windows, doors, and moving glass walls. Andersen has earned the trust from pros and homeowners alike for over 120 years. They will work with you to work smarter, stay on budget, and earn more referrals by providing high-quality products and installation support, making your installations easier and confidence stronger. If you've ever visited the ProViews blog on their website, you'll also see how they're working directly with pros to share helpful insight throughout the industry. Check them out at trustandersen.com. This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. I've always said it, if you're not watching your job costs closely, you're just guessing at your profit. Buildertrend sat down with the construction accountants over at month end, and they laid out exactly how to maximize job costing and protect your margins. This isn't theory, it's practical stuff you can do today to cut financial risk and make more money. Even small tweaks can mean the difference between a profitable year and a stressful one. Go grab those tips now at buildertrend.com/mcprofit. This podcast is brought to you by Harnish. First impressions matter, and your crew's appearance speaks volumes. Harnish Workwear helps your brand exude a commanding presence with custom branded gear that reflects the quality of your craftsmanship. Their H-Label program delivers premium work apparel, personalized with your logo, colors, and details. It's more than a uniform, it's a walking representation of your brand. Clean, consistent, and built to perform. If you're ready to elevate your image and stand out from the competition, visit harnishworkwear.com and start building your brand from the ground up.
I shared with someone recently, like, that I think is one of my negative personality traits, is that I'm always considering I just need to get to this point.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, when you're 14, it's like, I just need my license, and then I just need to be 18, and then I just need to be 21. And my whole life, I can remember that. I can remember constantly talking about, once I get to this point in my life, I will be happy.
So we discussed that as the arrival fallacy, right? That once you get to that point, things are going to change, and they might change temporarily, but realistically, it'll be short-lived.
Yeah. And when I asked you that question, you know, I was struggling with really just home life in general. It's, and the reason I had pivoted to, well, if I just had the money, it would resolve the issue. And that's because we haven't renovated our house. And what I was struggling with was we're on top of each other. We had this single family home. We sold it. We bought this fixer upper 3-family. We're converting it to a 2-family, and it's going to be beautiful. And like like once it's done, it's going to be like, I have all these things in my mind that I'll do. I'm like, I'm going to meal prep because I'm going to have a beautiful kitchen that I'll want to meal prep in. Like, it's just like, why is that? But these are things I think about constantly.
So
like,
it's funny. I didn't realize that after you followed up that question via text, I was looking at it maybe a day or two later, and you were like, "How are things with you and Rachel?" And I didn't ever even acknowledge that question. And then a couple other things happened in life, and I was like, "All right, now's not the time to acknowledge that." But like, I fully missed. Like, I didn't even see that until days later, and I was like, "Oh, that's not where he was going with that at all."
yeah, it was like, ask me how me and Meg are doing, because right now we're at each other's necks. But it's just, and our life is just so chaotic. Like, I mean, we're like, we have a great marriage. Like, we love each other. It's not anything like that. It's just like our life is so chaotic, and then on top of it, our house is just this, like, it should be where you come home and relax, and it's just not. And it's because we live in we live in a home that isn't our home. It's, and it's one of those things where it's like, well, I'm not going to fix that because we're going to end up renovating. And meanwhile, we've lived here for 4 years, which is insane to me that like 4 years have passed by, to the point where we just had a fridge that just didn't keep food good, like it fresh. And I was like, don't worry, we're going to renovate. We're going to have a beautiful fridge. Like, we'll have the best of the best. And it was probably 6 months ago, like, Meg lost it. And she's like, this is ridiculous. I'm buying food and it lasts 2 days. You order me a fridge today.
There's nothing worse. Our refrigerator went bad a few months ago, and there's nothing worse.
And I mean, like, it was just a bad situation, and I literally ordered a fridge, same day delivery, Home Depot.
So if money were no issue, I would buy a fridge. If I won the lottery, I wouldn't tell anyone, but there would be signs.
There would be nice new fridge. But it's just, it's like, that's the thing I want to overcome. I want to, like, our kids are young, our relationship is just different. But on top of it, I've added this complexity of having a house that we just haven't renovated. And it's frustrating because everything else pulls, like, there's so many other things that pull me in all these other directions. And I know everyone listening to this, like, yep, you're preaching to the choir, dude. Like, yeah, I get it. It's not, I'm not saying it in any other way where I know that this is relatable. We've taken on the 45 White Oak project. That has to be a priority. Like, that is the priority right now. And here we are at the tail end of it, and God willing, we'll sell it, and that will be an amazing kind of feather in the cap, but also opportunity for us to do our house and to renovate our house and to meal prep my meals in a brand new kitchen.
But I think that that's all part of it, and I think that where I was going with that question and where my head went was, like, and I know that not everyone does this, and I know that this isn't your situation, but most of our country is 2-income households right now, right? You just need both parents to work, and if you don't, it's still, generally speaking, it's weighed disproportionately towards somebody has to work more, somebody's at home with kids, and it's more than what it was when that was the case a generation ago, 2 generations ago. We're having to work more, whether that's one earner in the family working more or both people working, and you have less time with the kids, you have less time to be able to prepare food for dinner, you have less time. Sports are a whole nother thing, right? Every sport is year round. We just talked to Selby's volleyball, and their one volleyball in another town's going to be ending at like 9:30 at night. She gets on the bus before 7 a.m. It just, the way that life is constructed, these days, there's certain aspects of my life that money would solve some of those problems, right? If it's like I could pay somebody to maintain the outside of the home, I could pay somebody to watch my kids after work, I could pay somebody to drive them here, drive them there, go grocery shopping for us. Like there's certain aspects of my life that I could fix with more money, but there's also aspects of my life that that's not going to fix. But I think that we've just created a society where you need so much money to survive that you're going to base so much of your life on trying to figure out how to make it work. And it seems as though most people are treading water. They're just trying not to sink. And I think that you're probably feeling as though you're in that place. Some of that self-inflicted.
I think it's Tyler. I think all of this is self-inflicted. Like, sure, there's cost of living. Like I said this to Meg yesterday, actually. I don't remember what we were talking about, but I was like, screw it. Let's just sell everything we have here and just go live in the log cabin up in New Hampshire. And
school.
And she's like, how would we survive? Like we wouldn't have any money. I'm like, first off, if we sold everything we have, I'm pretty sure we can cover our $1,000 a month mortgage for a little while. But also I'd probably just work at the bar down the street because that's what I'd do. I mean, but the point is like, it's the life that we create, and it slowly compounds.
It is, but think about like, it seems as though it could be simpler, right? But when you really get into it, and it's like, my kids have tasted living in a town where they want to play the sports. You have healthcare. You need cars. You need gas. You need utilities. Like it adds up. I would love to have this ideal of I'm going to be subsistent and I'm going to go live somewhere where it's only going to cost me $1,000 a month. But realistically, when you boil it down, there's so many things that you can't get rid of in your life for you and your kids that it's like, yeah, I couldn't just sell everything and be a bartender.
Right. But I mean, we could sit here and argue like, what do you really need a car? Do you really need the kids really need to play sports? I'm not saying that, those just aren't necessary. And oftentimes these costs are just things that we want to do, or we want to give a good life for, or like food. It's like, the big argument is like, well, groceries. It's like, sure, but that's a convenience thing. Like you could grow your own food. There are other options. I'm not going to sit here and like explain the details of it. My point being is that it's self-inflicted, in like, it's where we live, it's what we do, it's what we want our kids to do, it's what we choose to invest our time in and invest our money in, and the luxuries that we want. And I get that. I don't actually want to give them up, but it is this constant like dichotomy of what I have versus what I want. And and depending on what your state of mind is, will depend on what you want. I was talking to you and another friend of mine about, one of my hobbies forever was cars, and wrenching on cars, and having a fun car. Like, and for 2.5 weeks, I just sat there like, all right, I could buy this, or I could buy that, or maybe I trade that. And it's like, I'm doing it because I'm trying to fill this like urge that I want. I don't need a new car. I certainly don't need an expensive, fast one, but I love one because I think it would bring me joy, and I know it would bring me joy.
What about healthcare and a house? I know that we discussed that. So truth be told, we recorded part of this podcast once before, so I'm confusing what we discussed between this podcast and another podcast, or overlapping other podcasts. But when you boil it down as far as what you need and to survive, and what's providing you freedom in your life, what's providing you happiness and joy, when you think of just the bare essentials, you need a roof over your head. For somebody who lives in your area, that was born in your area, buying a house with a roof over your head is an impossibility for a lot of people right now. Mm-hmm. If you think of anyone who's 20 to 30 years old, it's a really tough thing to do. You can't get into a house. Oh, there's certain aspects of life where it's like, yeah, I could get rid of this, I could get rid of that, but there's just certain aspects of life that make it really difficult for a lot of people. And I look at our generation, I look at the next generation, I look at our kids, and what's that going to look like for them? And would more money make that easier? Or are we just perpetuating the issue? And like, I also don't find anything wrong. I had this conversation with somebody who wanted to buy a new dirt bike and they felt as though they were being selfish. And the conversation was, I think that societally we've created this image that if you do something for yourself, you're selfish and you're only caring about your own needs. You're not thinking about your kids. You're not thinking about investing the money in what you should. And to me, part of life is working to be able to enjoy some of the things that you want to enjoy. It's the same thing as the moms who want to go to work after they have a kid. We've learned for so long and seen online and on TV and on social media that you're supposed to be this mother who just wants to stay home and nurture their children and homeschool them. And some people just, that's not what drives them. They want to go back and they want to work, and you shouldn't feel guilty for that. That doesn't make you a better mom, a worse mom. You're just who you are. And I think that the same can be said for you. Yeah, maybe you don't need a $150,000 car, but to want something that's going to give you some cheap thrills, I don't find issue with that. Like, I think that we shouldn't just have to work to pay for the shit that we need to survive.
Yeah, I agree. Right. I mean, we talked about the cost of homes, and we were actually talking about now I'm confusing which podcast we talked about this on, but like what we both bought our homes for and how that is just different now.
Well, yeah, like, so when I bought my first house, Rachel and I had just gotten done college. We bought the house together. I couldn't get on the loan. I could be on the deed, but I couldn't contribute towards what we were borrowing because I had just started my business within X amount of years. So we could afford a house around $200,000. We spent $176,500. The house is $450,000 now. Our interest rate was probably 4%, right? So we needed $35,000 to put down. Our mortgage and taxes, taxes are crazy in the town where we were, but it was $1,100 or something like that. So we needed $35,000 and $1,100 a month, and we could survive and buy a house and make some money on it. And now it's like that same house is $450,000, $500,000. That's the starter house. So now somebody at that 23 to 25 age range needs $100,000 down payment, and then they're going to pay 8-9% interest on that. So you're at you're at 40 some $1,000s a year in interest payments. How's somebody going to do that? And I know there's outliers and there's people who can afford that but for like, I wouldn't have been able to afford that.
I was going to say, like, yeah, in your example, the one argument is the $450,000 home is partly because you renovated it. And, we did look up if I could buy a house under 200 grand anywhere close to me. And I can't. Like, it doesn't exist. And we bought I bought my first house for 149. We sold it for 275, and I just checked, and it's now worth 450. So like, I look at it as, all right, 275 to 450 is the spring. That's almost $200,000 of increase.
Plus interest rate. That's the big one for me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's there's no way around it. Like, I get it, the cost of living, that, I think there is this misconception of what is a necessity in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, it's I want to say healthcare, like, is not necessarily a necessity. Like, you are not, like, you don't need to have it. I think it's very important to life. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but ultimately it's like, it's not something that you necessarily need to survive. Where it's like, you also don't need $100,000 home. Like, I mean, we could uncover this all the way down to, like, you could sleep in a tent and kill your own food and pick your own berries. Like, sure. Like yeah, that's just not the reality. That's not the environment that we live in anymore.
So how much of your life right now do you feel is dictated by the need to earn money?
90%.
And do you feel that that's where you want to be?
Absolutely not. That's a crazy question. I've never thought of it that way.
Well, I know from my own perspective, right, where I made changes, Rachel made changes, we found ways to make more money that we don't necessarily worry about money. Part of it's getting older, part of it's experience, part of it's investing money. But I know that one of the biggest stressors in my life was feeling as though we were breaking even every month. And
Hmm.
what would happen if we didn't keep enough food on our plate at that point. And when we were able to make changes to break free of that, my life changed so much because I didn't feel that 90% of my life or more was dictated by the need to earn money. So
What percent are you at?
if I weren't building a house, it'd be much lower, but even with that, maybe 50, 60.
That's crazy.
I just like we
Like
don't
you wake up 3 days a week and you're just like you could just fuck off.
I potentially could. Yes, that's
I
not.
guess it's not crazy. I mean like mentally,
Well, yeah, but
like
like
because mentally for me right now it's probably 7 days. It is. Right now in my current state. I'm 7 days a week thinking about okay, I need to do this in order for that windfall, and like it's just I am very much. I mean, White Oak is just an anomaly in my life, and that is a massive investment, biggest thing that we have ever invested in. So, like, of course, my mind is around that. Similar to you, I think if I wasn't doing that, I could probably knock 20% off my thought process.
but for you that would be something else.
Unfortunately,
Right? So like it yeah, that's I think that's part of the self-inflicted. I just realized that inevitably money stresses me out. That's why I'm risk
Mhm.
averse with money. That's why I'd rather live more conservatively. That's why I don't want a big company. I just like to control the risk. I like to know what's coming in, what's going out. I just like to feel good. There's pros and cons to that, but for me, I just have a healthier lifestyle when I don't feel as though I have to. If I want to, I will, and I'm very driven, and I'm always looking for ways to make more money, but I don't want to feel as though like my life depends on that because that's when I feel very stressed out. I want to make the decision to do what I'm doing based on my own needs and my own wants, not based on the fact that I have to do this or else everything's going to crumble around me. I've gotten so far away from that and it's just from lifestyle. It's the way that we spend money, and there's more that we can do. There's less that we can do. It's we have two incomes. Also, we only have two kids, so there's things that we've done to ensure that we're leading the life that we can. But like Rachel doesn't worry about that stuff. She's very different than me. She's never stressed out about it. She knows everything will be fine, that we're doing as much as we can do. And we're two totally different people, but she's somebody where if we didn't have a dollar in the bank and she was just getting up and work and do what she had to do, she'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
Doesn't really pay it much mind. It's just at the end of the day, it comes down to I think mindset more than anything else and what works for you. For me, feeling as though 90% of my time has to be consumed by how much money I need to earn just didn't really foster a healthy lifestyle for me.
No, and truthfully, like, I mean, I'm sure I complain about it enough, but at the end of the day, I mean, I love what I'm doing, and I don't think the 90% is necessarily healthy long term, but in the current moment, like it to me, it feels as though I'm doing the right thing. I am putting 90% of my effort towards this because this should be what allows us to eventually get to a 50%. Right? This is or gets me to 50% at the level I want.
So do you, and I think that this is do you? I think and I would tell you what I think you would do, but maybe I'll just ask you instead. But
Nah, I want to hear.
if you were fine, like you didn't have to worry about the money that you borrowed for White Oak, the investments that you have, the business that you have, do you think you'd wake up and do the same thing every day? And see, like that, I knew the answer to that nothing changes. And for me, not that much changes. It's just having the autonomy to make that decision myself and not have it be forced upon me makes
that's it.
The biggest difference in my mental health.
That's it. That's exactly it. You know, I think we made the example at one point, but like you put $2 million in the bank, like I'm still waking up and doing the same thing every day.
Yeah.
I'm just not now thinking about that. Where it's like, okay, I'm thinking about, all right, what's in the bank? You know, what do I need to transfer? Like, how much do I need to earn this month? When do I get paid for this? Like, all right, if I take this, is it worth it? Or is my time invested in these 4 hours better doing something else? Like, those are the things that I want to stop thinking about. And the problem with the problem with me, one of them, is that anytime I have made money or earned money for doing something, in my mind, it's, okay, I'm going to put it away. And instead, I'm like, what can I invest this in? And it's not typically a normal investment. Like, it's something that I think will pay off. I'll give you an example. I did a brand deal with someone. I made a couple $1,000 on it, or a few $1,000s on it, and I decided to invest in a piece of custom furniture for the 45 White Oak project because I was like, if we sell it, we can sell this thing for, whatever, 10x that number. And so that's what I did instead of like stashing it away to cool my stress level.
I wonder how much of, like, I think that in your head you tell yourself I would wake up and do the same thing. I wonder how much of just knowing that you have all of this behind you or in front of you is actually driving you on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I think if that was the case, I'd probably say no to more.
Yeah.
Where it's like, nope, I'm just going to do what I want to do every day. Where it's like, I make some of the decisions I make are just based on the fact that like we need to do this.
Yeah. I think that's the toughest part when you get to that point where you can't have that agency to make decisions for what you want, and it's because you have to. I think that's when things get really difficult. You get you build resentment, you get stressed out, you feel as though you're backing yourself into a corner. I think that for me is really the telltale sign that something's out of balance.
Sure. Going off the investment thing, I was thinking recently, I was like, I wonder, it would be really, I could never do it, but it would be really interesting to think all the way back to when, like, all right, I earned my first dollar and I immediately went out and bought something that I thought would pay me back. And like, if I would imagine like that's a tool I bought. It's like, okay, did I get my return on investment for that tool? And then what did I do in the next like tranche of money? And it's just to think about it like at that level, it's like, I wonder how much money I've actually spent that I've seen no ROI on or negative ROI. And I'm sure it's plenty, but it is this weird, it's this constant chase of, okay, going to do this or do this project. We're going to make this much money. And, we're going to be, we're going to have a great quarter. All right, let's just why don't we invest it? Like, why don't we rebrand our whole company and spend the next eight months doing that? And they're like, why? I'm like, and this is what I'm doing right now. I'm like, my team's like, I'm like, no, this is good. Like, we're going to launch White Oak will be done. Echo Palm will be done. We'll come out with our new website. Like, this will be what gets us to the next rung of the ladder. And that's how my brain works.
Yeah. And then you get up on the next rung of the ladder and you're just kind of in the same spot. Dude, I just had this conversation with my uncle at one of my brother's kids' birthday party, and he has two daughters that they adopted later in life. So he's older. He's 75. His kids are in college. So he basically lived a life with his wife, lived the retirement years, adopted kids when he was 55, and now he's doing it backwards. And he recalls his parents being able to put him through college, and how amazing of an experience that was for him to just come into his own, figure out who he was, what he wanted to be. And that was such a valuable experience to him that he said he'll pay for his kids to go through college. And he does well for himself. He is an attorney. He didn't have kids for a long time. His wife worked. They do well for themselves, but still, like, he wanted to take care of his children. And he told me that his youngest wanted to go to Villanova. Villanova is now $80,000 a year. So I'm like, all right, so that's just tuition, right? You have housing, all the expenses on top of that. You're going to be at $400,000, $500,000 to put your kid through college. What if you were to give them the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to a county school and I'm going to spend 50, and then I'm going to be able to invest $450,000 at 18 years old. To me, that would be like game over, right? You're 18 years old. Instead of investing in a college, or like his point is you're investing in the experience. To me, that's just giving a college your money, and you could save the experience, make your own experience, invest the money, take $50,000 and get a college education, or not even get a college education, do something else and invest that money and set yourself up for life. And to me, like, that's the decision to be made at 18. If I were presented that opportunity, or if my kids were in that position, that I would be like, hey, I'll give you money for college, or I'll give you money to invest. It's up to you. I don't know, as an 18-year-old, that I would have chosen the college route at that point.
Yeah, I definitely would not have, but I would not have invested it in any traditional way. I would have bought
Do
it.
you think about if you would have put that amount of money into even a
Anything.
conservative savings account at 18 years old?
Yeah,
I kind of feel as though you'd be set. I mean, you're not going to have a lavish lifestyle by any means, but I think that would work out okay for me. I mean, if somebody did that to me now, I'd take it and run with it.
Yeah, if there's any applicants.
Yeah. But for me, that's where I think that we have created a hustle culture. We've talked about that, and that within especially American culture, our self-worth, our success is tied to money. It's tied to what we do. And I think that, yeah, like, that does create a lifestyle for us. But I also think it helps a lot of other people make a lot more money. We're spending more money. We're buying more expensive houses. We're paying more money in taxes. And we're just having to work more to sustain the lifestyle that we either have or that we want. And maybe that's not the most important thing. And there's arguments for both sides in both cases. But to me, I would take a little bit more freedom with making less money than having the lifestyle that everyone wants and having to work more.
Yeah, I guess to your point about, like, it's different for everyone. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with the hustle culture, but it's not for everyone. Like, I genuinely love hustling and working hard and having a lot going on and act like when there's momentum behind what I'm doing, like, that feels good to me. And
if it's done, but what about, so for me, the hustle culture was a crutch for shortcomings within my business that I just told myself, I'm hustling, this is going to change. But I was hustling because things were not working. It wasn't as though I was hustling.
Right, like what we were promoting when early days of Instagram, where it's like, I work all night. Like,
yeah.
Like, that's
not.
It
wasn't like I was just making 3 days worth of wages in a day. It was because I was behind, because there wasn't enough money on a job, because my schedule wasn't right. Like,
Right, but I think the argument there is like, okay, but you did that because you had to, and now you're where you are because of that. I think like there's always this like look back moment where it's like, yeah, that was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. I should have spent more time with, my family rather than work nights and weekends. It's like, sure, but if you hadn't worked nights and weekends, where would you be today? And I mean, there like right, like there's always it's gonna that game plays out a different way if you don't invest again like back at that time. For me, it's uh, it's just I like getting shit done. That's what I that's what I thrive off. I was writing some captions today for some content, and one of the things that I was talking about was the runner's high and how like when you're out, I've just never gotten that. Like everyone talks about running and getting the runner's high, and like you're just in this euphoric state of mind where it's just like you almost feel like you're floating. I'm like, yeah, that's no, never happened to me.
I feel like I'm dying the whole time.
I feel like I'm dying. Yeah. But I've had that in other things. And one of them is when I was hands-on working, when you're busting ass and you're like, it's physically taxing on your body, but you slip into, at least I would, into this, like, it's like weird because, it's not completely euphoric, but like euphoric state of mind where it's like, dude, I'm getting dirty. This hurts, but I'm just working. I'm getting shit done. Like always felt good to me. And I don't do it as much now where it's like, I'm focused on the business, but anytime I get on a job site or like I was helping Ken with some stuff at the shop yesterday and I'm just like drilling concrete and drilling metal. Like I'm just working.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking about it. Like I know what my task is and I'm just getting it done. And no music, nothing. I'm just in that state where it's just like it's a flow state. And to me, like that's one of the things I always loved about work, like physically working hard. I don't even know how I just got on that topic.
And I think I can relate to that. I think for me, that led to like it realistically probably became somewhat of an addiction, right? That not that I wanted that, but I was always chasing that same type of high. And once I got working, it was like, I will work through this until I absolutely am done, or until somebody kicks me out of their house, or until Rachel's like, yo, you really need to come home right now. And I still, it happens, right? If I need to meet a deadline, like I was going on vacation, I was trying to wrap a job up for my buddy. I was like right back in that state of hating it and loving it at the same time, where it's like, I don't want to be here, but I also kind of want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
So that for me, it seemed as though it was what I wanted to do, but the hustle culture for me was generally a crutch for shortcomings of my own. And I think that I'm all for hustle culture, but it has to be based on your own prerogative. It can't be because you're short on money, because you didn't bid a job correctly, because you didn't pay your taxes, because you ran into some mistakes, whatever it is. I think that it needs to be due to your own reasoning. And I think that that's the big difference. I think that most people who are promoting hustle culture are doing it because it's like, yeah, I can outwork you, where maybe that's not the most important thing. Like, can you outsmart me?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, your time has to be worth something. Your free time has to be worth something. Your mental headspace has to be worth something. And I think that the hustle culture within our industry probably doesn't really promote that as much. I think that to me, it's more of a negative type of mindset where it's like, I'm just going to outwork you. Or it's like, well, you should make money with a more business minded mentality than by just saying, I'm going to 2x the amount of work that you can put into it.
Yeah. I mean, also depends on the context, right?
Yeah. I look at it sometimes. I don't know if you ever do this, but when I'm really confused about whether I should be doing something or if it's the right move or if it was worth it, I think about it from the lens of, what if my kid were doing it, right? And I think when my kids are 20 years old or 23 years old if they had started a company like I had, would I want them to do the shit that I was doing and be in the place that I was? And it's like, yeah, I wouldn't be where I am today without it, but I don't think that I would want them doing a lot of what I did. Like, it was too much.
Funny, your kids are slightly older than my pack of children, and I'm just starting to have some of those thoughts where it's like, I didn't even, Marley just turned 9, and I'm like, man, in 2 years I started working.
Yeah.
And like, how is that possible?
Dude, Tilly's 9, and I was literally putting on her shoes this morning. I'm like, you're in 4th grade. Why am I dressing you? And she's like, because you told me I had to eat. And I'm like, still, in 4th grade, I was doing my own laundry. I was riding my bike to school. Like, my parents were not lacing my shoes up for me.
No.
It's different.
I was talking to a dad at hockey last night, and we were talking about like farm strength or old man strength, and how like our kids aren't going to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just I remember growing up with my dad. There was this vivid story I remember, but growing up, it's like you just learn to be strong about shit that you probably shouldn't have as a child.
Yeah.
Like whether it was like whether you worked on a farm or you just you had a grandfather and dad like that I did, where I worked for them when I turned 11 years old, but before that I was doing yard work. The story I remember, we had this God, I can add so many details to this story as I think about it. My dad bought a 2001 yellow Corvette, so he needed a garage for it. So he ripped out my mother's garden. That was where it would be a perfect spot for the third bay for the garage. And so he's in a Bobcat and he's moving all these railroad ties around. And so 2001. So what? That makes me 12, right? No.
I was
13.
in high school.
13. So I'm 13.
Freshman year.
I'm 13. And he's ripping out these railroad ties and moving them around with the Bobcat, and he tells me and my brother to pick them up. What? Like, you get a Bobcat, and he's pick them up and move them over there. And my brother was not like, he would just cry, and I'm not giving him enough credit. He would just go inside. He'd be like, nope, not doing that. And I'll never forget, my dad got mad at me and was screaming at me to move them, and I physically couldn't pick them up. They were just like massive and heavy. And he got me so worked up that I finally went over there and I picked the thing up and I carried it across the yard and hucked it into the pile. And I was like, I remember in that moment, I'm like, why could I all of a sudden do it? But tying this back to my original point of old man strength, it's when you're forced to figure stuff out. Like, that's a bad example of my dad just yelling at me until I was enraged enough to huck a railroad tie, across the yard. But like, the reality is, like, that was my childhood. Like, I was always moving shit, picking up shit, doing yard work. Like, it was just always physical. And, there's certain people that just understand how to use their body in a way that can be, but that's strong. And we had a friend that was a boxer. He said the same thing. He goes, when I train, I'm in the woods. I'm chopping wood. I'm picking stuff up. I'm carrying tree trunk, because that teaches you how your body can be strong. Not lifting weights, not being in the gym. It's like, can you actually move that? Can you figure out how to move that boulder across the flat?
Yeah, it's like practical strength, right? Because when in life are you literally going to be laying on your back having to bench press something with your hands spread a certain distance apart?
Right. Where it's like, no, I need you to move that stump. And, but going back, it's, we think about the kids and it's like, man, I was 9 years old. I was doing that shit when I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
And my kids just aren't. And I think about our New Hampshire place and how I want to build a shed up there. And there's a bunch of stuff I want to build. I'm like, all right, I got to get these kids some tools. Like, we got to get up there and start swinging some hammers.
So, like, the problem I have, and I just had this conversation with somebody, I was at the Fine Home Building Summit, and he wanted to discuss a program where he's getting kids involved with the trades. And part of the issue I have is even when people are working for me, that there's such a demand to produce that it's so hard to slow down to do those things. And I think that's a lot of times why I don't have the kids help me with shit, because it actually will, like, long term it would speed me up, but in the moment it slows me down, where it's like it's just easier if I do it myself. So they don't really do chores. Like they don't help with the lawn, they don't do the dishes, because at the end of the day I'm like, it's just easier to do it myself. But I don't know, when we were younger, we did everything. Like
Everything.
after work, after school, after sports, my dad would load us, about six of us, into a Mazda B2000, like 1.5 cab stick shift truck. So he was driving, one in the passenger seat, somebody crotching the stick shift on the center console, and then three people in the back on like the little fold down seats, and
The sideways seats, right?
somebody
Yeah.
sitting in the middle. And we'd go mow all his lawns from his rental properties that he had till it got dark. And that was like every single week, going, picking up trash, snaking sewer drains in the crawl spaces. Like, my dad had us do all that stuff. And I'm like, damn, I can't even have my kids take the trash out, because it's like they drop stuff on the way out and then they don't pick it up. And I don't, I don't know if it was the fear of my dad or my parents just disciplining the hell out of me that I did anything and everything that they told me, and I don't parent that way, or if kids are just different. I don't know what the answer is, but like, I'm telling you, my kids do not do enough at all.
The chores are funny. I remember growing up, we would all clean up after dinner clean the kitchen after dinner, and we would basically all take like a responsibility. Like, one would do the dishes, one would clear off the table, one would do all the counters. But thinking about it, I remember, I mean, we would sit there it would take us an hour to clean the kitchen,
Yeah.
and we would use all the water. Like, it would be
No hot water for
no
shower.
more hot water. Like, we were just, and I remember cleaning the bathroom. It was the same thing. Like, I'll never forget, my mom walked in, she goes, "You did a really good job. Why is it so wet in here?" And it's just like everything's just soaking wet.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm like trying to dry it with like big bath towels. Like, why is there so much water on the floor? And it's just, like, our parents just always like, all right, we're gonna let them figure it out. But Mark Williams shared something with me recently. I think it was him, but it was something about how, rather than making chore, like, hey, it's your turn to do the bathroom. There was this interesting thing that they talked about, how you give ownership to like one room. It's like, hey, Tilly, this is your bathroom. Like, you're responsible for it, and you get them to just basically own that. Like, this is your space.
Yeah.
You're judged on this space. And I mean, easier said than done, of course, where it's like, my Reed would be like, okay, this space is fine. I don't need to clean it.
Yeah. That's what Tilly would do. Or she'd like pile shit in the corner and be like, oh no, it's cleaned up in the hamper in the closet.
Right.
But that's something for me where I think if I had more money, or more money that I felt I could spend on stuff, it may not be things that I want to buy, but things that are going to create more freedom for myself and more time. Like, having somebody do the laundry, having somebody help around the house a little bit more because Rachel's working, because I'm working full time. Like, there's little things that I would do, even just the chores around the house, that I would pay somebody to do, just to create a little bit more freedom for myself and not feel as though I have to work all week long to spend my weekend doing chores and picking shit up. But I don't know, that I guess maybe that's just life.
To bring this back to what we talked about in the beginning, Meg and I are so different too when it comes to the house, where like she can just live in chaos and I can't. Like, she's like, oh, whatever, I'll do the dishes in the morning. I'm like, I literally am going to have an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, and that I've learned to accept it, is I think a good way to put it. But last night it was the same thing, and it's like the kids are like, I'm getting the kids to bed, and Meg's just chilling, and the house is a mess, and there's stuff that needs to be done, and I'm like, I want to yell, like not yell, I want to have a conversation with you right now and tell you to get up and please fucking do this for me because I need it, but I'm like, there's no point. Like we just see it totally different, and it's like silly stuff, and it's just like, and I see it in my kids, like that's Reed. Like Reed will like empty the dryer and there'll be dryer sheets on the floor and he just was like, nah, whatever. It's like, dude, just literally pick them up. Just like there's a trash barrel next to the dryer.
That's how my kids are. They like walk in the door and take their clothes off, and it looks as though somebody came in and swung a wand and just made my kid disappear. Like their clothes are there, but my kids aren't there. I'm like, why is this stuff? Or just wherever they get done with something, that's just where it is. Just it blows my mind, and it used to upset me more. Even the dishes thing, like I used to get done dinner, clean up from dinner, and I mean, Rachel and I before kids had like a full-fledged fight about that, and she's like, why does it matter? And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't. But I also think that her, like when she's ready to clean up and tidy, that serves as some sort of therapeutic exercise for her. Like she can control it, she can tidy, she can clean up, and I let her do that when she's ready to do it. And I don't know,
I still struggle.
Yeah, like I don't love it, but like I found that I'm that way at work, right? So I get to fulfill all of that with my truck, with my job sites, with my clients, and then I can give it up when I get home because realistically, unless you have the means to be able to hire somebody to do everything around your house and keep it in tip-top shape and like clean multiple times a week, you're going to spend all your free time doing that shit. And it's just gotten to the
If you
point
had the
now
money,
where
would
like,
you do it? Would you do that?
I wouldn't do all those little things.
No. If you had the money, would you have someone manage your house?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And like, it's not that I couldn't afford it right now. It's just that I would rather not spend the money on it.
It's not like a priority, right?
Yeah, like I would rather spend that money on something else. Like it just seems foolish of me where at the end of the day it takes me 2 hours a week to mow the lawn. I can figure that out. We have a lot of lawn to pay somebody $300 a week to come and do that. To me, that just seems like I'm throwing money out the window and that could be spent elsewhere. I don't know if it would ever change. Like how much money am I going to need to make to be able to like make that make sense? Like it probably doesn't make sense right now, but I don't know if I would ever give it up. But I think in my head, I tell myself I would.
Meta has my ads dialed. Like I feed it way too much data.
Yeah.
So I keep getting this ad saying, hire a household manager that will treat your house. Like basically like you want your house to feel like a hotel for less than $1,000 a month. I'm like, yeah, I do.
Hell yeah.
I'm like, sign me up.
Dude, it's just the dumb stuff. Even like
you fill it out. It's like, how many kids do you have? Oh, 4. All right.
Yeah.
Now it's $4,000.
Like we're on well water, so I have to like pick up salt and bring down salt to the basement for like water treatment. It's something that I could get somebody to deliver, but then it's like I got to be here to get them in the basement. Like I'll just do it myself. So it's something always on my depot list where it's like grab salt, and I don't get it until I'm like the water tastes like metal, and I'm like, oh, I need salt in the water softener downstairs.
See, I'll do that, and the moment I forget, then I go and I just subscribe to shit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I know I need a filter for the HVAC like every 6 months. I'm just gonna have one on Amazon show up every 6 months. And I did that with dog food.
But yeah, that's the best.
Sure. And then one dog died, and then a second dog died, and then we had 6 months worth of dog food just show up. I was like,
was that you that we had the conversation with? Like, I think I saw it maybe online what Chewy's business model is.
Oh, there was a clip going around where if they die, they'll
refund you the cost of it and send you like something about your dog dying.
Yeah. It's something. Yeah, and I think it's built into their algorithm where it's like if they cancel or they slow down the subscription, they basically reach out and find out if the dog passed, and then basically like, send something.
But yeah, I think for me, more money. I think that money would buy me freedom in certain aspects of my life, even like time freedom, but also just mental freedom. Like I don't want to be locked into feeling as though I had to spend 90% of my time just kind of grinding. Like I would never want my lifestyle to get to that point. And it's been at that point. And it wasn't healthy for me. So I think that ultimately there's a lot of problems that money's not going to solve.
Totally.
But there's certain things that I think it can make, it can, when done properly, money can solve a lot of problems for a lot of people. And I think that it's good to have a decent balance between the two, to understand that, yeah, at the end of the day, it's not going to buy you health. It's not going to buy you more time. It's not going to buy you your family or relationships or friendships, but it could solve problems for a lot of people. Like a lot of fundamental problems with survival and everything else are just making life more enjoyable for you, but you can't depend on it for happiness.
I think for me, it's recognizing when there's a win and taking that reward.
Yeah.
Rather than taking, like, being, oh, this is great, let's take it and go do, like, for example, I already have another property that we're going to develop after 45 White Oak. I'm telling myself that when we sell 45 White Oak, a portion of those should come back as a reward, not just take 100% of that and then go do that and then put myself in this another 2-year long adventure where it's like, Nick, you got a home that
you should probably do that if you want to stay married. Should be the marriage portion.
Yeah, I mean that's 100% accurate. It's like, and I think that's why I constantly have a full plate, because it pressures me to make decisions. The problem is sometimes those decisions are 2-3 years long.
Yeah,
it's just a long tail.
Cool. Well, good to pick up the conversation where we left off. That we recorded this one a couple of times. Life might have gotten in the way, but yeah, I'd be interested to hear from everyone else what type of problems money can solve for you, and where you don't think that it really serves too much purpose in your life. How much weight you put on money, how much you depend on it, if it's what defines you, if it's what defines success for you, just what your stance is on that. I think you understand where Nick and I stand on that. Some differences, some similarities, but hey, that's everyone.
Yeah, if you want to share that, info@moderncraftsman.co. Make sure you head over to our website. We got some merch going up on the site.
Yeah, dude, that's pretty sick.
So a bunch of you guys have asked us about t-shirts, and the original Founders t-shirt. We did a huge launch. I think let's make sure it's live real quick. Because
October 1st. Yeah, so by the time this comes out.
Those founder tees, they are back up on the website, moderncraftsman.co. You can click on the founders tee, and there's a button, and you can click and buy it right from our partner, Harnish Workwear. We partnered with them. You know them as a show sponsor. It's the best fitting t-shirt. It's literally the only t-shirt I wear now.
I have two. So I either wear a Modern Craftsman t-shirt or a TRG shirt. It always used to just be TRG shirts, but I have enough Modern Craftsman shirts now, and I like them, that I switch. I put on the Modern Craftsman shirt when I feel as though I'm not doing just full filthy work. And then I can kind of get by where if I'm running around in stores, I don't look homeless. And then my TRG shirts are reserved for just like, you're going to be nasty by the time you're done wearing this. Those are my two.
My drawer is filled with NS Builder shirts, Modern Craftsman t-shirts, Harnish branded t-shirts, and then and blank t-shirts, but the same t-shirt. I'm like, I just love the way they fit. But either way, they are a limited edition. They're going to be available for only 30 days. So as of October 1st, head over to moderncraftsman.co, click the shop button. Modern Craftsman Founders Tee up for sale. It is a pre-order. So you'll get on the pre-order list, and then we'll print these in a batch, and you can get yours to join the other couple hundred people that have them. See you next week.